Hello, University of Zimbabwe students. My name is Fanuel Kaseke, the SRC president. Just here to give you a feedback and report on our tenure. The past year has been quite a fascinating and interesting year in which we have done all the best that we could to represent the students at all levels. Due to the economic meltdown with a lot of challenges in which we faced, as well as some of our administrative problems that we faced as a union, as the Students' Representative Council. But ultimately, we also had our successes. Upon getting into office, one of the things that I promised was that we needed to restore the SRC, the union itself. And one of the loopholes that was within the union itself and its operations was the constitution. During the vacation, we did appoint a 7-member commission which was looking into the constitution. The constitution was last amended in 1997. And the commission has since availed their first draft, in which will be making it public to the students so that they can also make their input. This is a very important exercise, as it allows also to redress some of the problems that the union has been facing in terms of operations, in terms of standard operating procedures, which were affected by a number of SOPs that the university also put post-1997, which were not consistent with the Students' Union Constitution. One of the most important achievements that I need to highlight is the establishment of a Students' Appeals Committee. Initially, students would go for a students' disciplinary hearing in which there was no proper following of the laws of principles of natural justice. But through extensive lobbying and advocacy, we've managed to ensure that now there's an appeals committee which is between the Vice Chancellor's decision and the Council's ratification. So once students have gone through disciplinary hearing and they are not pleased with the decision of the Student Disciplinary Committee, now you can now report or appeal to the Students' Appeals Committee, which is composition of 5 members, 1 student representative, the Dean of Students, as well as members of Council. We are also delighted that in order to cater for the transport problems, the university is also in the process of designing a new plan for the University of Zimbabwe rank. We have had a lot of complaints pertaining to rowdy behavior. We're trying to construct a new rank in which it will be suitable for buses to ensure that we get rid of combis and ensure that there are buses that accommodate students. Students has also been ably represented. The Minister or the Secretary for Transport also sits in that capacity. We've seen the reintroduction of loans in which the SRC Secretary for Social Welfare also sits as a member to also see how these loans can be made accessible to students. The other important thing during our tenure in its inception was the issue of transport, which is a very big challenge to most non-resident students, which is still a challenge. But we managed through engagement to bring ZUPCO to plan the route of Harare, CBD to Mount Pleasant here on campus. We're still in engagement and clubbing to ensure that we have more buses. But right now we have about 4 buses plying the route, which has made life easy for students. We have also been, during our tenure, in engagement with even the landlords that are around campus to ensure that the prices as well as the living conditions for students out of campus are always improved through engagement. As the president of the union, I also attended the Minimum Norms and Standards Symposium, which was organized by Zimbabwe Council for Higher and Tertiary Education, ZIMCHE. Subsequently, as the president, I was appointed into the committee that is crafting a policy on minimum norms and standards on higher and tertiary education accommodation in Zimbabwe. During the course of the 2019 February to June semester, we had fees revision committee meetings in which students were ably represented. When the university wanted to hike fees, accommodation fees, we stood in resolute, understanding the current economic trends, which saw the accommodation fee being increased only to 1,200 through able leadership of the 2018 to 2019 Students' Representative Council. The journey was not as smooth as it all sounds all rosy. We had a lot of challenges. We're dealing with systems in which we wanted to change. Time was not on our side. One of the problems that I think continued to affect the Students' Union, the Students' Representative Council, is, number one, failure to communicate with the students. There seems to be a breach between the students. There's no consistent engagement between the students and the SRC. Once people get into office, they become enemies of the students. Instead of the students engaging their leaders to pave way, there is a gap. And the other problem is that in terms of the administration, the Dean of Students, the SRC operates under the Students Affairs Department, which is headed by the Dean of Students. And there's always been a de facto president in the name of the Dean of Students, where there is consistent competition in terms of activities that the SRC wants to have. There is no support of the activities of the Students' Union. The other biggest problem that students were facing and are still facing was accessibility of food outlets on campus. Since the closure of tuck shops in 2017 by then VC Professor Leva Inyagura, there has not been enough food outlets for students to access variety of food, especially those that are not in residence. We've done consultations throughout all faculties, in which we've moved around with the Director of DACS, the President of the Union, the Director of DACS, and the Dean of Students. And we also met with representatives from the students, from the University Administration Executive, in which a policy has been made, and right now it's underplanned, in which the university is going to put 5 sites in those 5 different outlets, which are going to service each faculties. One of them is going to be at the Rank, the other one is going to be the Faculty of Commerce, the other one at Diamond Lecture Theatre, CHS, as well as the Faculty of Science. But we've ensured that students will also get a place in which they will also be running their own business to fund the activities of the union. We've also managed to secure the basement where DACS has been operating, making a different fast foods. The Students' Union will be operating. We are still fighting to ensure that we restore the entire union building to the Students' Union, so that all operations of this building are run by the SRC. Another big challenge that we faced during our tenure was the lack of consultation by the administration. There's always been the old order in which students were not consulted. As a result, they ended up being reactionary. We saw that in a couple of weeks ago when students wanted to be evicted. Students' Union, the SRC, was never consulted. In a number of issues in which we engaged with the administration, including from fees hikes, there's always been that lack of consultation on the students' body. But we are pleased that in some areas, the new administration of Professor Paul Mapfumo was indeed engaging. It was unfortunate in the last days of our tenure, they disengaged for reasons best known to themselves. But our advice will always continue. If we are to move from the old dispensation of reactionary politics to proactive politics, administration needs to constantly engage students. Students remain key stakeholders of any tertiary institution, with which, without, there is no a university. Through extensive lobbying, we have seen the improvement of Wi-Fi provision through the introduction of EduZone, as well as the University of Zimbabwe Wi-Fi itself in halls of residence. Previously, students could not access Wi-Fi. Previously, students could not go on social media using the university Wi-Fi, as it was prohibited. But through extensive lobbying with the administration executive, we also saw that there was introduction of new EduZone sports within the university campus, including hostels. The processes are still ongoing, as well as improvement of the Wi-Fi itself. Another major area of concern to students has always been entertainment. Previously, SRCs used to hold bashes in the Great Hall, and that was the only source of entertainment. We did manage to host one, opening bash on the 12th of April 2019. The current semester, one of the problems that we continue to face in terms of entertainment is getting approval for activities. Right now, we are still wrestling and fighting so that we can have an outdoor event. The reason why we put a hold to the night bashes is that they don't accommodate all students. And if we could have a day, an event that starts in the day and then extends to the evening, this will accommodate all students, and not only all students, but as well as students of different interests, which we also need to cater for. But one of the biggest problems that we've always faced, and we are still facing, is approval from the administration, as they are very skeptical of new ideas. Another problem, and very big problem, that continues to haunt the university is eMari, the online application platform. eMari has created problems from students' results to accommodation application. It was very unfortunate that in the August to December 2019 semester, students faced a lot of challenges in applying for accommodation, which later led to a lot of uncouth behavior, corruption, where students were now being asked to pay US dollars for them to get accommodation. It's very unfortunate that the university still continues to talk about long-term plans in terms of building new hostels. We have engaged even the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, the University Administration, the University Council, and continue to talk about this, that the university should ensure that they build more hostels to accommodate students. Accommodation in Zimbabwe is not an option due to the harsh economic trends, and most students, especially those that are out of Harare, always get stranded because they fail to get on campus accommodation. And we, as a union, we spoke very vehemently against corruption, with a lot of instances where people were coming with letters from the so-called ANASHEF. They were getting accommodation at the expense of students who are really in need. It's unfortunate and very saddening that you'll find that people who are in accommodation are people who can drive to school on a daily basis, while you have somebody who is coming from Chipinge who fail to get accommodation because the system is always manipulated. All being said and done, the University of Zimbabwe remains a place to be, the first university in Zimbabwe. One of the most important advantages for coming to study at the University of Zimbabwe, which I think all students should consider, is generally, if you have traveled to all institutions in Zimbabwe, you see that we have the best infrastructure, modern infrastructure. Also, in terms of our curriculums, we have tried, and through the new strategic plan, the plans are also underway to ensure that our programs meet the current demand of the market. That also include repealing of other programs that have become archaic. We've seen the establishment of an innovation hub in which we're promoting innovation. A university that is not innovative is not worth being in the 21st century, as it's being driven by technology. The innovation hub is a place where we are trying to connect young intellectuals with the industry. We need to create products that are suitable for the market, products that solve the real problems that the society is facing. It's not about coming to university and getting a degree, but it's how best do you use your degree to add value to the different communities that we all come from. Greatest leaders are those that are able to foresee the future and prepare for it. Greatest leaders are those that are able to establish systems, to change systems, and put in place new systems that are able to sustain their leadership, that are able to sustain their organization. We have done our best to ensure that we put in place systems. We've done our best to ensure that we establish systems for the continuity of the Students' Representative Council. Our greatest hope is that whoever is coming into office after the 2018 and 2019 SRC will carry the same mandate to ensure that the union is remembered as a formidable force, as it has always been. This calls for students in the forthcoming elections to open their eyes and look for leadership that has potential. It's not about being the loudest. It's not about being reactionary. It's not about doing demonstrations. It's about being proactive. It's about the ideas that you bring to the table. It's about a clear execution plan. It's not enough to have an idea, but it's also important that whenever you have an idea, you also have a plan, a clear plan on how to execute these ideas. It is very paramount that we open our eyes as we choose the next formidable leaders. Let's not look for the loudest, because noise does not bring change. What we need is people with practical ideas that can be put in praxis, that can benefit the union. We leave office very happy with the contributions that we have made, with the spirit that we have inculcated, the spirit of engagement. We are very delighted, and what we want to see is this to be taken to another level, and this can only be done if every student opens their eyes and understand that the next leadership should be able to foresee the future and plan for the future. Vote wisely. Thank you.